Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It is Saturday morning, and we'll go ahead and get started with our session today. Do we have any questions or anything that may have grabbed your attention, or questions or comments about anything? No one? Okay. Well, let's do this then. Let's look at Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13. And if somebody logs in that has a question, then we'll just kind of pause a little bit. But I try to have something to talk on most days anyway. And we try to look at where we are as far as what anything we need to see or anything that kind of pertains to what's going on outside in the world, or something that may uh, kind of speak to us generally. And if you notice, I said we because uh, as we discuss things and as we uh, uncover truth on the line, I see us and feel us growing closer and closer together. So thoughts and feelings and all of our energy kind of goes into these lessons and where we are, what we are discussing on a daily basis. So that's where I think we are. And I thought that this was, or I think rather, that this is something that sort of speaks to us. It's one of those lessons that has me excited, but it's also a little complicated. So it may take all of us to kind of look at it and unravel here. Okay. Uh, Numbers 13, chapter 13. Again, but before we get started, though, is there anyone who may have logged in the last couple of minutes that may have a question or comment? I hear some static. Can everybody make sure the phones are muted, please? If it's coming from mine, maybe I need to get off and get back in. Okay, thank you. Uh, but anyway, anyone questions and or comments? Okay. Again, this is something that sort of spoke to us, and I hope it makes sense. If not, let's stop and pause and look at it. Okay, but this is when Moses sends the spies to go into the land of Canaan. Start in verse 1. It says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Send out for yourself men, so that they may spy out the land of Canaan, which I am going to give to the sons of Israel. You shall send a man from each of their fathers' tribes, every one a leader among them. Okay. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran at the command of the Lord, all of them men who were heads of the sons of Israel. And I'll go into the names in a little bit. I'm going to skip the names for right now and go to verse 17, okay? And we're going to come back to this. When Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, he said to them, Go up there into the Negev, then go up into the hill country and see what the land is like, and whether the people who are in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and how in the land in which they live, is it good or bad? How is the land in which they live? Excuse me. Is it good or bad? And how are the cities in which they live? Are they open camps or fortified? And how is the land? Is it fat or lean? Is there trees in it or not? Make an effort then to go to get some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time for the first ripe grapes. Okay, let's hold up right there. That's really kind of far as I went in my study anyway. Uh, to look at this. Again, I think this kind of points to us in so many ways. Uh, this comes on the heel of the previous chapter is when Moses is challenged by his siblings. He's challenged by Miriam and by Aaron uh, that he married a Cushite woman, and they are kind of grumbling and complaining about that, and complaining about, well, is Moses the only one that hears from God, and we hear from God also? And Miriam is stricken with leprosy, and the camp has to stand still while she is stricken with leprosy till she is brought back into the camp after the prayers of Moses and Aaron to God. Okay, so this is what takes place next when the camp moves. They move from where they are, and they move to Paran, the wilderness of Paran, and this is what takes place. So the Lord speaks to Moses. The thing that sticks out to me is, why was this necessary? If God has said to you, I'm going to give you this land, why is this part necessary? Why does God say, send out for yourselves men? He didn't say, just send out some people, send out some men. So that he said, send out for yourself. In other words, this is something that you need to see. This is something that you need to be enlightened on. So what do you guys see here? What sticks out to you about this command from God? Anything?
And good morning, everyone. One of the things that I draw from that, Ron, and this is my contention and belief, out of all the characters that's in the Bible that had a relationship with the Creator, I feel Moses was the one that was the most difficult. In a comparative degree, Noah didn't really put up a resistance in what the Creator asked him to do. Yet Moses was a little bit difficult because of how he grew up. He grew up, he didn't start out privileged, yet he grew up privileged because he passed as the Pharaoh's grandson. So I think the energy and the intimacy between Moses and the Creator, this is why the Creator said, I need you to see this for your own self. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate your insight. Well, before we go into that, is there anyone else? What do you see there?
Yeah. Good morning, Ron. This is George of Philly, and I just want to concur a little bit, what George Watson said. But for me, it's like, we can see it through the eyes of others. We can see it through the eyes, of Moses. But at the same time, can we see it from the eyes of ourselves? And so being able to conceptually have it to be personal, and us being in the oneness, I think we have the opportunity to be able to have that understanding of what it means to us as Elohim. So again, I appreciate, reading it in the context of how, God is giving us this this analogy or this story, but how do we make it personal? And I think that we're in a time and season that we are experiencing this in our own way, that we can be the energy and light to be able to bring loving kindness and balance to humanity. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, George. I agree. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Pastor.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were on.
I see this also. I don't see this as Moses during Bible times, right? I see this.
Say it again. Say that again, Pastor. I
don't
didn't hear you.
living in biblical times or in an ancient place during the period of antiquity.
Okay.
I don't see it in a classical historical sense. I see this as a story being told. But let me back up. Here we are. We are putting together a playhouse, and we have all of these things that we want to put in place. And before we put them in place, we show those around us what the function of each one of those dolls or each one of those images is. And then we put them in place. Now that all of them are in place, those around, those who are put in place began to search for where they came from and how they got to where they are. And in doing that search, they began to see that their consciousness that was already in existence before they were brought into existence. Bottom line, I see the story, everything in the scriptures as consciousness, human consciousness. And human consciousness existed long before the human did. So when I look at stories like Moses, what I see is human consciousness being shown to the human, so the human will know what its consciousness is supposed to look like as opposed to what it is currently looking like. Are you following me so far?
Yes.
So I see this whole idea of Moses as it being in human consciousness is telling us what our responsibilities are and showing us the adversities that we are going to have to overcome in order for us to get to that place in this space of time where we are supposed to function as above, so is below. What do I mean by that? If we are looking at this through the eyes of Western thought, they are stories. They are deemed to be historical stories, even though they are not. However, if we look at this through the eyes of the Semite or through the eyes of the Aramaic or the Hebrew or Arabic for that matter, if we look at it through Semite eyes, what do we see? When we look at it through Semite eyes, we don't even see people. What we see is sound. The thing that we call our bodies are simply condensed sound. And in other words, it's condensed vibration, meaning that these things that we call our bodies are vibrating at a lower level than the sound of music. You can hear the music, but you can't see the notes. You can, and when we are out of vibration, when we are out of when we are out of rhythm, it is then that we start talking about being demonically possessed, meaning that we have been overcome by adversarial thoughts that has brought us to a place of taking us out of rhythm with the universe itself. And when we talk about casting out demons, all we are doing is bringing people back into rhythm with the universe itself. And that's what I see with this story about Moses. The story about Moses is telling us, in order for you to vibrate with the rhythm of the universe, you're going to have things drawn out of you. You're going to have to walk away from some things. You're going to have to change the way you think. You're going to have to die to those things that you thought were real, so you can actually become the reality that you were created to be. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So when I look at this and others in the scriptures, this is what I'm seeing more clearly every day. And the clarity with that, the clarity that comes with that, rather, is the understanding that that there is actually no separation between anything in the earth. When we look at a flower, we have separated ourselves from that flower. Well, that was unknown to the Semite, and still is to this day. The connection there is based upon breath, not about the physical appearance, but about the life source of it all. Our unicity is not based upon what we look like, it's based upon how we act. And how we act is determines whether or not we see ourselves as one with everything that is. The connection with nature is not something that just says, I can talk to a cat or I can talk to an ant. The connection with it is that all of us breathe the same breath. Every one of us are kept alive by the same source, the same spirit. So that's the unicity of it all. And when we see it like that, then what do we begin to see? We begin to see that there is no such thing as gender. In the Semitic mind, there is no gender. Gender did not come into play until that we connected with, we came in contact with Europeans who separated everything into stoic positions. And this is not something that was done haphazardly. This was done for a reason, and the reason we can get into later. The Semite, the Eastern mindset sees does not see gender. It sees what we call a female as an extension of itself. It sees a male. The female sees a male as an extension of itself. It sees itself as being one and the same, as opposed to being separate entities. When we begun to see things as separate entities, it is then that we saw Miriam as the bad woman and Aaron as the good man. When both of them did the same thing, and Aaron was not punished and Miriam was. Well, what they're telling us is that when we fail to remain in rhythm with the universe, instead of making our snap judgments about things, wait and hear and see what the answer is. And if we don't, then we are out of rhythm. And when we are out of rhythm, a type of leprosy overcomes us. And the thing that Moses did, he and Aaron with the prayers, was they meditated in order to bring Miriam back into rhythm. And bringing Miriam back into rhythm means that her bitterness, the bitterness that she had towards Moses, was extracted from her or drawn out of her, and now she was free of that type of leprosy. So here we are in this day and age. The scriptures haven't been written those many years ago, and here we are for the first time in the history of humanity being in this earth, that we are beginning to see the unicity, the oneness between the stories that are told and what they mean. And right now, here we are. We are in the midst of the wilderness, and Moses Moses is drawing out of humanity the adversarial thoughts. And while that's taking place, there is a Miriam. There is the bitterness in this earth is being birthed towards those who are trying to make every effort to bring balance to the earth. And that bitterness is creating a type of leprosy in all of those who are embracing it. And the only way that we can remove that bitterness, or the only way we can separate them from bitterness or transform that energy of bitterness into an energy of balance, is for us to maintain the balance from within and recognize that even though there is a Miriam who is bitter, it does not mean that Miriam is not us and we are not it. What it does mean is that we are to bring Miriam back into rhythm. We are to bring that European mind back into rhythm with the earth, so that when it is in rhythm with the earth, then this leprosy of hatred, this leprosy of racism, this leprosy of misogyny, all of these types of leprosy can be brought to a place of healing. And the healing of leprosy is simply the healing of the soul. And that place in an experience, in a wilderness experience that is separate from everything around us. And that wilderness experience where it takes place is not in between the mountains in some mountain range in the Middle East. It takes place within the mountain ranges of our soul, within us. And the highs and lows that we go through are the valleys and the peaks that we are traversing in order for us to maintain the rhythm that we were supposed to have from the beginning. And you say, well, why did we not have it? Because if we had been given the rhythm of the universe from the beginning without any means of being out of rhythm, then we could not be Elohim. The only way that we could be Elohim is to make a decision to be Elohim, and that decision begins a purging within us. And that purging that takes place is not a purging as you're pouring something out or throwing something away. That purging is different spiritually. Spiritual purging is when you bring balance to that which is out of balance within you. Spiritual purging is when you are in rhythm or desire to be in rhythm with the universe. So that purging is actually taking it's like taking a guitar or a musical instrument and putting it in tune. So you didn't throw the musical instrument away. All you did was tuned it up. And now it plays the sounds that it was designed to play, and now it is in rhythm with the other instruments that are in tune. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna hold you right there for 1 second, Pastor. I just want to back up, make sure we all got clarity. We went over leprosy a while back. Does everybody understand leprosy? And although I did not read the previous chapter, that ties into where we are now, as Pastor's already tied it in. But do you understand the leprosy portion of it? And Miriam?
Could we have an explanation of that a little bit more?
Audrey, are you on? Can't remember. It was Audrey or Barbara that went into leprosy and kind of gave us an understanding on it. But it's a disease, and you can help me out with this too, Pastor. It was the disease that struck people, and the outwardness of it was you were put out of the camp because it was highly contagious, and you would see sores and it looks like something eating away of the skin. But it was also attacking your nervous system. It was also attacking your spinal cord and your nerve endings in your body. And what takes place is the spiritual side of it is there is no rhythm. You cannot feel you have a numbness in you. So you could not be in. You hear us talk about being in rhythm with the universe. That's the spiritual side of that. So you go ahead and help me out with that, man, because I want to mess it up.
Leprosy is caused by bacteria that eats away at the flesh that exposes the nerve endings. If you hear an instrument that is out of tune, that is out of rhythm, it grates on your nerves, right? Is that not a statement we make?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I talk about a type of leprosy, I'm talking about those things that grates on our spiritual nerves, those things that irritate us, not because we are angry with them, but they irritate us because we know that there is a better way, and that's not the way things are supposed to be. So when we talk about spiritual leprosy, we are talking about the bacteria of our hatred, the bacteria of racism that grates on the nerves of the spiritual soul and causes the emotional pain that pushes us to either embrace it and become a part of it, or it pushes us to do something about it. And where we are now is doing something about it. What are we doing? We are fine-tuning the instruments. And the instruments that we are fine-tuning are the souls of man. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. You were you done then? I just want to pause right there and get that portion in. Were you there was something else you were going to?
I was simply going to make an effort to expand on the difference between what happened with Miriam and Aaron is more like what happens not between a man and a woman, or not between masculinity and femininity, but it's something that happens that one person does the same thing, but their intentions are different than the person who did it out of malice. The bitterness was out of malice. Now, bitterness could not have come into the earth unless it was birthed. Therefore, the bitterness of Aaron could have been bitter. It wouldn't have mattered. The bitterness of Aaron coupled with the bitterness of Miriam is what brought bitterness into the camp, and that's why it had to be taken out. Leprosy removes you from the presence of the camp. So in order for the leprosy to be treated and not infect everyone, Miriam had to be removed from the camp. That does not mean she was physically removed. When we speak about it spiritually, what we are talking about is we are on this phone. So we are in a camp, and we are outside of the camp of leprosy. And what we are doing is putting a cure to this bacteria, putting a medicine, or putting something in the macro that would treat this bacteria so it does not spread. And what we are putting in the macro is truth. We're putting in the macro is enlightenment. So we're shining the light on this type of leprosy so it will not spread to others. And the ones who have already been affected by it, the light is what brings it to an end. The light is what minimizes the presence of this bacteria so it does not become dominant in the earth any longer. So what we have to do, look at this. We have to do it really, really quickly, and that is we have to stop looking at ourselves as males and females, and stop looking at ourselves as trees and people, and start seeing that we are fluid. We flow. For example, in the Aramaic, in Semitic language, there is no such thing as a living body. If you look at the meanings, it talks about a corpse, because there is no life in this thing if we are not the life in it. Therefore, we have to continuously look at ourselves as being one with everything, not because I'm holding your hand physically, but because the same air that you are breathing at this very moment is the air that I am breathing, is the air that the ants are breathing, that the frogs are breathing. Everything is connected by this spiritual life, this life source, this life energy is the thing that permeates the space that we live in. Because we are the solidity that we think we have in terms of something being solid does not exist. Why? Because if you look at the Western mind, then there are things that are stagnant exist. In the mind of the Eastern mind, it does not exist. There's no such thing as stagnation. Everything is always flowing. And even if you look at when Jesus said, "It is finished," what we have translated that to mean is there's a stoppage, there's a period. That doesn't mean that. It means that when in the Aramaic mind, when it speaks of being finished, it means that it has been brought to the place that I am supposed to bring it, but it is a continuous process that someone else picks up from where I left off. There is no such thing as stoppage. There is no such thing as stagnation. There is no such thing of death. There is no such thing as dying as we see dying, because we see death as an end of a life, when in actuality, death is truly the extension of a life or the resumption of life, because there was life before this body existed, and that life is continued in the body, and it resumes after it leaves the body. It resumes outside of this body. Therefore, what we are looking at is a continuous flow of spirituality, a continuous flow of life, a continuous flow of everything that's around us. And the reason that we are able to find solace when we walk in nature, when we walk barefooted in the grass, the reason we are able to find balance there is because our body knows that it is one with everything that's in this earth, and the spiritual essence of our being is reconnected to the magnetic field of the earth itself, especially when we are walking barefooted. When you sit by the waters and you listen at it, the roaring of the waters, you feel it more than you hear it. So it's like, even with the word ruach, when you say ruach, it's like you're holding your breath within, or that you are taking a pause in your breathing. And the ruach is if you really, really say ruach and think about where you feel it from your heart up to your head, as opposed to throughout the rest of your body. Why? Because there is a connection between the soul and the mind. And that connection between the soul and the mind is not only made by the breath itself, but it is maintained by that. And that is the reason when people are angry and out of rhythm, they breathe differently. And that also, when people are depressed, they breathe shallow. All of these things are because we are out of rhythm. But when we are in rhythm, there is a smooth exchange of air between the lungs and the atmosphere that surrounds us. I'm done. Thank you.
So ruach is then a type of breath or a type of breathing.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. So everything Pastor just talked about, we talked about last week about feeling isolated or feeling loneliness. So the isolation, and then Audrey also said that she see it as us learning to find out or to connect with ourselves. So it's necessary that we have that feeling of isolation or the yearning to find out who we are. Does that make sense?
It does, but this is the difference, Evelyn. Every one of us are going to have it, but what I've seen since we talked about that is this. Every one of us are going to have it, but the issue is not having it. The issue is how we interpret it. If we interpret isolation as being alone and no one around us, and we are at a standstill in our life, and there is no mobility, we're not moving forward, we're just sitting there. That's the wrong interpretation. But if we see isolation as us flowing with the Creator, if we see isolation as us flowing with the universe as opposed to making efforts to flow with the material world that we live in, then that in itself makes all the difference in the world. Because if we embrace the reality that this isolation means that our eyes are closed to what's around us, and our eye is open to the reality that we are, and we are flowing with it. And we are flowing with it without impediment. We're flowing with it without anything, any kinds of distractions. When we see it from that perspective, however, because of the way what we have been taught about loneliness or about isolation, we see it as a negative thing because we've been taught that it is negative. And that isolation means that you're locked away all by yourself and nobody really cares. Does that make sense?
It does. And now that we know that it's okay to be in that place, in that space, let's be creative with it. Let's take it and transform it to something that's going to help mankind. And I'm glad you said that this morning. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's more than okay to be like that. It's a necessity. It's imperative. Because if we don't take time to flow or to recognize, embrace the fluidity of the universe, then we will be locked away in a cell in isolation. And the cell that we are locked away in is our own mind. So what the Creator is making every effort to remind us of when we are in those places is remember who you are. In other words, that period is your Sabbath. That's your Sabbath. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
It reminds me of a conversation I had with a young man at work. He was talking to me and kind of complaining about not being able to sleep at night. He say he wakes up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's about the same time, And I said, well, maybe it's, and he says, I feel like praying. I said, well, do you do that? He said, yeah. I said, well, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Maybe that's why you're waking up. It's an opportunity. So, but it's what Pastor just been said. We've been taught that that's bad, and I guess his thoughts are, hey, I got to get up in a few hours. I don't have time for this. But I think sometimes, at least it happens with me, you use that opportunity as it comes to you, as you feel it, then you get your rest. You may not get your sleep, but you get your rest. So,
and see, this whole idea of that, Ron, he says he prays, right?
Uh-huh.
But what he's actually doing, according to whether it be Hebrew, Arabic, or Aramaic, what he's actually doing is hollowing out a place inside of him.
Yeah.
You are hollowing out a place inside so you can hear from Allah, so you can hear from the universe, so you can hear from the Creator. That's what you're doing. Every time that you enter a state of meditation, what you are actually doing is opening up a space to receive. And you don't always know what you're receiving. And sometimes you don't ever come to understanding what you receive, but there are times when you say things, you're like, where did that come from? Or things happen in your presence, and it doesn't bother you the way it once did. This is based upon that period that you took to hollow out that space, so that you were in a position to receive. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So this idea, like for example, when you are in a church congregation and you're praying, you are not praying, you're not meditating, you're not doing anything except entertaining. And there are those who are uncomfortable with what I just said, but you should get comfortable with the truth. The only reason that we pray the way that we pray is simply because that's how we've been told it's supposed to be. The Scriptures does not tell us that. Jesus says you are a hypocrite if you stand on the corner and pray. In other words, prayer is not the multiplying of words. It is not making a public atonement for anything. Prayer is getting in your closet. It's opening up the internal you. It's opening up that space in you that no one can see, not even you, but you know it's there. Therefore, our idea when we teach other people that prayer, this is how you pray, and then you have folk who call on you to pray, and you stand there and you don't say anything, and then all of a sudden he don't even know how to pray. What does that mean? You don't know how to pray? Does it mean that I don't know how to pray, or does it mean I don't have words to say? So prayer has become the stringing together of words that have no meaning whatsoever. The stringing together of words to make people feel a certain kind of way, as opposed to taking an opportunity to silence your voice and open up so that you can hear the voice of the one who's speaking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we are fast approaching this time when all of the antics that we have experienced in these settings are being disposed of. Not only have they been exposed, but they're being disposed of as we speak. And I do believe firmly with everything in me that there has never been a time in this earth that the writings of the holy men have been understood the way that they are understood now. I believe that. I do believe that even when Jesus was teaching, they heard what he was saying, but they didn't know what to do with it because it wasn't the time to do anything with it. And I do believe that the wilderness of the water, and I would appreciate it, Ron, if you would talk about that wilderness thing for a few moments, but that wilderness that we experienced on the waters when we became a nation is the period when everything was being formed within us to force us to a place where we became those who create in its image and likeness, those who understand that you create in your image and likeness, but you cannot do that until you realize that you are the substance of creation and that you are not only the substance of creation, but you are what you create. You understand what I'm saying? So this wilderness experience, it started on the waters, but it continues until now. And we are dealing with entering this place of Canaan. So would you talk about that wilderness for a moment, Ron, so I can connect this?
Yes, sir. I want to, if you don't mind, Pastor, back to Moses, because something that George Washington said, and I want to make sure we understand as well. I like how he put that, but I want to say the other side of it. Moses, as Pastor said, means to draw out, and the Hebrew term of, when you look it up, it means to draw out of water. And I want to tie that into the nation born on the water. The water part of this is very important. To draw out, though, has two meanings to it. It means to remove or extract something. It also means to elongate something, to lengthen it. So I think in a spiritual way, both of those things play out. And I'm going to depend on Pastor to kind of go into that a little bit more. So this is something that is ongoing. Moses is not a man. Moses is a spiritual journey that began long before man was put in the earth. This is a tool that is inside of each and every one of us to help us to draw out those things that are not truth, draw out those things that are, and even lengthen or elongate those things that we have to contemplate, those things that we're not sure about. So we'll go into that a little bit more, but we are constantly drawing out. This is speaking of an energy, not a person named Moses. So when you look at that, and I'm going to go down just looking at these verses, when we talk about the land of Canaan, it's talking about you draw out yourself till you move to a place that you have humbled yourself. Canaan means to be humbled. We talk about the milk and honey of it, and we have grown through religion to see that milk and honey to mean that we're moving into a place that we have no more problems. Everything is going to be a storybook kind of ending kind of thing. But on the contrary, this is a place where you humble yourself and you move to a place that you become subdued. And what is it that you subdue to? You become subdued to the truth that you have become. You become subject to bringing understanding to those who do not understand, or those who are still walking in religion. So Canaan is not about you bringing yourself to a place where I no longer have to worry about Ron. It is a place that Ron is lowering himself for seeing the humility in him, that the humility part says, Lord, show me whatever I need to be, whatever I need to become to show men what truth is. I'm not exalting myself, or the other side of that. I'm not exalting myself to show that I'm above anything or anybody. I am willing. I have given up Ron, so to speak, as we talked about this, as when we looked at what is his name, Abraham, when we looked at what it means to give up free will. I am no longer myself. So that's the lowering of yourself. That is the humbling of yourself, being Canaan. He said, talk about the 12 tribes. The tribes are describing an authority, a type of leader. when you look up tribe, it talks about a staff or a rod or a branch. It's talking about that thing that gives you your authority, that thing that helps you on your journey, that thing that a staff, if you will, is something that the shepherd used to chastise the sheep. Is used for correction. It's used as a sepulcher to show your power and authority. So this is talking about the walk that you are. So when you look at, and I skipped those 12 names, we're going to come back to that. And it's not necessary to go through all 12 of them, but just to show you the principle of what is taking place here. The wilderness is the one that we sort of fascinated by. Wilderness is a place that is uncultivated, a place that is dry, a place that does not sustain life. Now, what is the difference of a wilderness? The other example here is a city. A city is a collection of thoughts. It is a place that is cultivated. It is a place that is already established its value system, its norms, its consciousness, or levels of awareness. If I take a city like New York, for example, New York is driven by power and wealth. So even those who do not have it, because of the way it is established, you always feel like you're in want. You always feel like you're in need. When if you look at your life, a lot of times you may be in need. There is poverty. I'm not saying there isn't poverty, but I'm saying the norm is to always be looking at that. That is what is being pushed as being successful or being someone who has made it. So everybody in a city like that usually has the same value system. Your value system is I have money or I don't have money. I have power or I don't have power. So when you talk about a wilderness, it's talking about a place that's waiting to be cultivated, and that place is inside of you. We are at that place where and when you look at that, it comes from a word, dabar, D-A-B-A-R, means to speak. Means to speak. It means to think. It means to rehearse your words. It's in other words, it comes from the word where God spoke everything into existence. So you have, when you recognize who you are, that's the kind of authority that you have. And that word comes from a word that means to beautify, to glory, or to boast about yourself. So all of this is tied together, and all of it is tied again to Moses and the drawing out of the water. Pastor, I know I said a lot, but if you can tie that together for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
When you talk about the wilderness being a place that is to be cultivated, then what it is within us. Also, what we must look at, if we can wrap our minds around the nation that was born under waters, and then what was this nation coming to? Why was this nation brought to this landmass? Because the consciousness of this landmass, is the consciousness of Earth. It's the consciousness rather that needed to be transformed, and the transformation of this type of consciousness needed to be transformed for what purpose? In order for us to be who we were created to be, and that is Elohim, then there has to be creativity that we perform, creation rather, that we bring into existence. And the creation that we bring into existence is that creation created within the confines of this landmass, of this consciousness, this type of consciousness that would enslave and brutalize. We were brought here and put in the belly of this wilderness for the express purpose of cultivating it, for the express purpose of bringing it to a place of humility, as opposed to a place where it is of haughtiness. The consciousness that we are currently in the midst of is a consciousness of arrogance, a consciousness of such arrogance to the extent that it is willing to destroy everything in sight if it takes that in order for it to remain in a place of authority. And we are the nation that was born on the waters and brought into this wilderness for the express purpose of drawing out of this consciousness, this sense of brutality, this sense of arrogance, this sense of greed. We are charged with drawing that out, and in doing so, we have to remain humble along this journey. We cannot fall into the trap of superiority, meaning that it simply because there were great nations in the earth before anyone knew a European existed, it doesn't mean that we are superior to anyone. It simply means that we are to change this arrogant, dogmatic consciousness of this earth. Dogmatic to the extent that everything that it says about religion and calls it spirituality, we are bound to accept it simply because it was said by those of this consciousness. It's like, regardless of what we say as a people, right now we are talking about being a nation being born on the waters, a nation who was brought to this wilderness in order to cultivate it. And right now, if I were to stand and say that in a public forum, then the mindset of Africans who have taken on the mindset of Europeans, and the mindset of Europeans would be that I'm speaking of African superiority. No, I am not. I'm speaking of African humility. I'm speaking of a type of humility that makes us the most forgiving people on the face of the earth. I'm talking about a type of humility that brings us to an understanding that if we do not accomplish what we are set here to accomplish, then the earth itself is going to be destroyed by that mindset of arrogance and greed. And we must embrace the reality that even though there are 1,000 of us saying the same thing and seeing the results of what we are saying, one European steps up and says it's not true. And the whole world steps back from us simply because it came from someone who looks different. When rightness or unrightness is not about how you look, it's about how you act. So if our actions of humility are genuine and people are benefiting from that, then why is it that the actions of one who is greedy, one who is arrogant, one who seeks to destroy the earth, why is it that they are embraced over the truth? Because of fear. Because subconsciously, the consciousness that has come from this mindset is a consciousness that presents itself as God to us. It presents itself as our creator. It presents itself as our permanent master. And as long as we embrace it as our permanent master, we will preach the same things that were being preached that being preached since slavery. We will preach the same things that has kept the earth in bondage, not the African, but the earth in bondage, because the European is just as much in bondage as the African. We will preach the same things because we don't know what preaching is. We've been told what preaching is. When it talks about Jesus preaching, it is not Jesus going to a building and preaching a message delivered based on some text that he took. No. It's about Jesus going into a community, and in the largest meeting place in that community, he goes there and simply says, here I am, let's talk. And he starts talking about what righteousness is. He starts talking about how people should treat each other. He starts talking about how we were fearfully and wonderfully made. He begins talking about not only will you do what I've done, but greater things. Why? Because you are who I am. You are me, and I am you. And I am a boon, and you are a boon. That's why you're going to be able to do these things. When he talks about a house that stands against itself that a house divided cannot stand. He's not talking about your family. He's talking about you. If you are divided between righteousness and unrighteousness, you can't stand. You are going to be weakened. You're going to be destroyed. So we cannot be afraid to speak the truth. We cannot be unstable when it comes to standing firmly on what the truth is. The truth is construction of this earth, everything that is wrong in this earth is based upon a type of consciousness that is greedy, a type of consciousness that is barbaric, a type of consciousness that has no spiritual acumen whatsoever and seeks none. It simply seeks to enrich itself in a material world. And that is the consciousness that we have been charged with transforming. And the transformation of that consciousness says that we have to show people that the wealth is knowing who you are, is not in material things. The power, the strength is in making sure that the weak is strengthened, as opposed to making every effort to keep the weak weaker or make the weak weaker. The consciousness that says to us that we are not independent of each other. We are interdependent because all of us are one. That type of consciousness is what we are in this wilderness to cultivate. And when we cultivate that consciousness, we have to do it from a place of humility. We have to do it having a deep desire for humanity, to be human, because we have yet to learn what it means to be human. Being human is not simply coming out of a womb in a physical body. That is not human. Being human means that you realize that you are Elohim having a human experience, that you are the rhythm of the universe in a condensed version. And that condensed version is the rhythm that we call a body. Our body vibrates, but it vibrates at such a low, the vibration of it, rather, is so dense until it doesn't seem to be moving. But it vibrates. There is no way that our body is not vibrating. If you really think about it, if your heart is beating, it's vibrating throughout your body. So the vibration of our body is not just our heart. The vibration of our body is engineered by the energy of the universe. And when we bring that to our place of understanding what that means, then we are more in tune to bringing this earth consciousness to a place of balance, which means that everyone in the earth has a sense of entering Canaan, the land of milk and honey, a place of humility, a place where we are more concerned about each other being taken care of than we are about ourselves, which means that everyone is taken care of and everyone is respected. Does that make sense?
Pastor, can I add something I didn't say and let you keep going? If you don't mind. Couple things here. I got 100 notes, y'all, because this kind of got to me a little bit. It had me excited. But I wrote something down. A rabbi says wilderness is a place without any type of cultivation. When you search for truth, you leave culture. The more you search for truth, you leave culture. Culture is the religion that we live by daily. So when we walk away from that, you move into your search for truth should take you to uncharted lands, uncharted dry lands. So uncultivated place that you look for. And as I said, the root of that word was debar, the place, and it is a place where we learn to create. It comes from two words. One is Yah, it talks about the formalization of everything. Everything that is formalized to deliberately establish or pronounce something, to name it or to define it. So you do that with speech when you move to this place. When you search for truth and you move to a place that is uncharted, you are cultivating the land. And what you speak, that's why we have to watch what we say. What you speak is you are formalizing truth. You are formalizing or making it, putting it out there in the earth so other men can see it, so that others can understand it. Another root that comes from debar, not a root, but one of the words that comes from it is dobar, D-O-B-A-R, and it means a pasture, as in putting a sheep in a pasture. I thought that applied to where we are. Another one is midbar. Midbar is the root of Debar, and it means to place your words. It means to go to a dry place and a question that Evelyn asked. It means to be in a lonely place. So you see how all of this stuff ties together? So we're at a place now where we're searching for truth. We're at a place now where we're uprooting what is being culturally put in us, and we're moving to a dry place because we're in a place that is uncharted in earth. As Pastor said earlier, we're seeing things that has not been seen before. So we're in a desolate place, and in doing so, as we speak these things, as we talk these things out, we are formalizing truth in the earth so they can be seen and understood by other men. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Because I want to, let me say this, then let's see if there are questions or comments. We talk about things that resonate with us, right? Which means that we feel them. Religion, we respond to it through physicality. Spirituality, we respond to it through emotion, internally. What am I saying? In order for you to, right now, the same words that Yeshua spoke, or the same words that were spoken in regards to Yeshua, Jesus, those same words are still vibrating today. And if you have a desire for truth, then the deeper your desire is, the more rhythmic you become. Meaning that the way that the voice of the prophet was heard is that not just by the ears, but it was heard because they were breathing as the prophet breathed. Their breath, inhaling and exhaling, was one with the prophet, meaning that they were on the same wavelength. They were at the same frequency of the prophet was the frequency that they were on. And when you are on this phone, you are at the same wavelength as the shaman. If you choose to know what truth is, if you are on the phone to challenge truth, then you are out of rhythm. If you're on the phone to understand truth, you are in rhythm, meaning that you might not be able to regurgitate what you hear, but you experience what you are hearing. If you raise a question, the reason for your raising the question, the tonality of your voice in raising that question determines whether or not you are sincerely seeking truth or whether you are challenging truth so that you can stay in your ways that you were, or so that you can protect that corner of religion that you hold dear to your heart, but you're not saying it. You're pretentious. You are playing both sides against the middle. At least you're attempting to. You are making an effort to keep one foot in that church pew. In that church aisle, and the other foot in that place of spirituality, just in case. Just in case what? Because any time that you deal with a just in case, or you deal with, I don't know about this, then what you are actually saying is that your desire for truth is not seated in truth. Your desire for truth is only seated in a place where you seek acceptance. And the acceptance that you seek is acceptance of those who you deem to be in power or to be popular, as opposed to your desire for truth actually, going far beyond a desire for yourself in terms of being accepted. If you want to be accepted by other people, then that means that you don't accept yourself. And religion does not teach you to accept yourself. Religion teaches you to accept it. You accept what religion says. You don't accept who you are. And when you are accepting who you are, then if no one else accepts you, does it hurt? Yes, because we have been conditioned for it to hurt. Yet, we must go beyond, we must embrace that pain and keep moving. Why? Because you cannot be humble if you don't know what it feels like to be in pain. Humility comes with pain. Humility is an emotional expression that you have regardless of what circumstances you are facing. If you feel like you have to get back at someone because they said something to you, that's not humility. Humility doesn't mean you allow someone to walk all over you. Humility doesn't mean you allow someone to denigrate you. No. You can respond without being diminutive towards that person. You can respond without challenging someone's humanity. You can respond without arrogance. You can respond and still be humble. But if your response is based upon getting even or one-upping, then you are not being expressive of humility. You are not in Canaan. You are not in the land of milk and honey. You are in the wilderness, and you are sharing the consciousness of selfishness with those who you have been brought into this wilderness to bring to a place of humility. Does that make sense? Any questions or comments?
Yeah. What you think, y'all? Where are we? Make sense to you? Do you see us here? Do you see wilderness different now?
I think I see wilderness differently, and I think I have a better understanding.
The beautiful thing to me about this is everything that we're talking about here, whether you're looking at wilderness or Canaan or Moses or all of it, are things we've talked about a dozen times, and it's funny that where we are now, that's the beauty of it to me, to kind of mark where we are in our spiritual journey. We're getting a deeper understanding of this, and getting a deeper understanding means that we see ourselves clearer. That's all we're saying. So we're at a place now where not only are we shedding off religious concepts, all of these terms represent a mirror. We see ourselves clearer, and we see who we are, and we see where we've come from, and you also see whether or not this is as far as you want to go. You may not want to go any further.
Right. Well, and Ron, even with that, I look at that in regards to the story about Judas, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question is this: was it your intent to stop in the first place? What were your motivations for being there? Were you there to be popular? Were you seeking truth so that you could know something that someone else did not know? Were you seeking truth so that you could teach a Sunday school class or deliver a message that so that people could pat you on your back and talk about how deep you are? So if that's the case, then that's how you stop. However, the scripture says, know the truth, and the truth will make you free, right? What is he saying? What Jesus is saying is, when you know the truth, what he's saying is, when you are intimate with enlightenment, when you become one with enlightenment, it consumes you. And when that light consumes you, you leave selfishness behind. So if you are there for the wrong reason, regardless of how you try to hide it from those you're learning from, then you are not consumed by truth. Therefore, you will stop. However, if your desire is genuine, there is no stopping. Why? Because when you are consumed by truth, it is by the truth that consumes you that others will know that you are my disciples. Does that make sense? How do they know? Because you travel the journey of the teacher. What is the journey of the teacher? The journey of the teacher is the pathway of truth. And that journey that you are traveling is a pathway of truth. And that the pathway of truth is not so much you teaching someone by sitting them in a classroom, but by the life that you live, by the conversations that you have, by the interaction that you have with each other, and by the boldness with which you speak. Let me share this with you. When we first started talking with the people in California, my initial conversation prior to our coming together was this. I can see us doing this on one condition: that you understand that we are not going to sugarcoat anything, that we are not going to make anybody feel good about where they are. We are going to deal with what reality is in our lives. If you want to understand what racism looks like from our perspective, then don't make any effort to set the agenda or to control the conversation. Why? Would you mute your phones, please? The reason being is because the reason nothing has changed is because the African has always acquiesced to the ones who are in control. The ones who are in control have always set the agenda and determined what's right and what's wrong without any consultation with the one who understands his own plight. That's what I said. Now, this is what I'm saying in essence. The most insulting thing that any European can say to me or to you, and you not know it, is I understand what you feel. No, you don't. It is not necessary for you to understand what I feel, but it is necessary for you to understand the source of what I feel. Does that make sense? Can you see the difference? Can you see the difference?
Yes.
And that's what Jesus was teaching. Jesus was teaching. It's impossible for you to understand what I feel, but it is not impossible for you to understand the source of what I feel.
Sir, can you explain the source?
The source of what I feel. What I'm talking about is this. If the source of if racism is hurting me, you can understand the source of that racism, but you cannot understand the effects that it has on me. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. So what I'm saying, that's what Jesus was teaching. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, unto God that which is God. In other words, don't try to take anything that belongs to Caesar. That belongs to Caesar. But what render unto God which is God, that's not just talking about a tithe. It's talking about you and your desires for humanity. submit yourself to Allah. Submit yourself to who you are. Seek to walk in the essence of your being. Don't hold on to anything that Caesar deemed to be his, because even you are deemed to be Caesar's. So render to Caesar what Caesar and God was God. You don't belong to Caesar. This material thing, that belongs to, that's Caesar's stuff. And if you are caught up in materialism, then that means that the energy of the essence of your energy has intermingled with the energy of those material things that you cling to. And because your energy has intermingled with the energy of materialism, now you are making an attempt to serve two masters. Because whatever your energy intermingles with, that's affection that you are showing for it, and your affection for our materialism has pulled you to a place where you worshiping it, where you have submitted to it, because you will do whatever it takes to hold on to what you have and to add to it. But when you understand that you are one already with your Creator, you're one with this universe, you are the essence of everything that is, then you are not pulled into a chamber of marriage or a chamber of intimacy with materialism, because you live in the mansion of humility, of grace, of righteousness, of peace, of loving kindness. Does that make sense? Questions or comments? I'm done.
Okay. I wanted to, we okay, y'all? I'm gonna read something else then, if you guys are okay. If there's too much already, let me know. We'll pause here. You guys okay? You want to go a little further?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I talked about the names here. The names are important. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran into at the command of the Lord, all the men who were heads of the sons of Israel. I'm starting at verse 4 right now. These were the names from the tribe of Reuben, Shamar, the son of Zakar. From the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat, the son of Hari. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb. Now, I can go through every one of these. I'm going to stop and just use one of them as an example. What I did in looking up these names is I looked up the tribe, I looked up the man that was sent, and I looked up his father. Okay, looked up all of those things, and I even went back and looked at the mother who birthed this tribe. For example, Reuben is the son of Leah. He was birthed by Leah. He was the firstborn. Remember the story of Rachel and Leah was the first wife of Jacob. She was the one that was deceived, that Laban deceived Jacob after and put her in his tent. So when he wakes up in the morning, he sees he has Leah and not Rachel. Well, Leah was unloved. And Leah is the one that is desperate here, trying to get her husband to love her. So the first one, God opens her womb because she's not loved. So Reuben means, behold my son. It means to see, I have a son. The Shamari comes from the word Shama, means to hear or to listen. So when we look at these, they all sound good, but let me go to I'm going to read something from Genesis 49. This is about Reuben, and I'm just trying to paint a picture here. It says Reuben, this is when Jacob is about to die. And he's gathered all his sons here to give a last word to them. He says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, the might and the first fruit of my vigor, or my strength, exceeding in rank and exceeding in honor. But you're unstable as water and shall excel no longer. And when you mounted your father's bed, you brought disgrace. My couch you mounted. So, in other words, when you look at all 12 of these guys, and it's talking about personality, we're talking about energy, not talking about something that is separated from you. But I said in the beginning that the 12 tribes never came together. This is an opportunity for that to happen as we look at this. So when you look at all 12 of these and look at what the scriptures say about them, what you're going to see is every thought, every emotion, every type of greed or lust or any type of advantage or disadvantage, anything that man can be, you're going to see in these 12 sons. Anything that he can be. So there's a reason that this is what the tribe is made up of. The thing that sticks out, though, is of the 12, 2 of them make it into the promised land. And the 2 that make it is Judah, which is described, Judah being the tribe. Again, Judah is the son of Leah, and it means praise. And the person that was sent out was Caleb. And the thing that's really, really, really strange to me about the name Caleb. Caleb comes from a root word that means a dog. I got nothing from that. I don't understand what that means. So at the end, though, in verse 16, what you see is that Moses changes his name to Joshua, and Joshua means the Lord is salvation. Okay. Now, let me get a little further here. Yeah, Joshua means the Lord is salvation. So his name it turns out to be the Lord of salvation. The other one that is did I say that wrong? It's not. I apologize to you. It was Hosea whose name was changed to Joshua. I apologize. Hosea's name was changed to not Caleb. Not Caleb. I take that wrong. I take that back. Let me back up a minute. 2 of them made it into the promised land. I apologize, y'all. 2 of them made it to the promised land from verse 6 and verse 8. Judah means praise. Caleb makes it to the promised land. Caleb's name does mean a dog. Like I said, I don't understand what that means. The father's name means to turn or to face or to come back to. The number 8 talks about Ephraim, who is a son of Joseph. His name means a covering or a bandage. So, and that is the name that was changed to Joshua, Lord of salvation. So of the 12, only 2 of them make it to the promised land. So again, when you back up and gain understanding of what wilderness is, the drawing out is these are the inconsistencies, these are the religious concepts, these are the greed and the part of humanity that doesn't seek truth inside of Ron, inside of each and every one of us, that has to be purged out, that has to be purged away. And that's what this represents. On the other side of this, I say 2 of them all only made it. If you remember correctly, the word tithe or portion of, tithe means the power of. Tithe means that the portion, if the portion is sincere, if that proportion is genuine in wanting truth to be unfolded, then the tithe is representative of the whole. So this kind of looks when we look at this and we see what takes place here. So when he talks about go and spy this out. In other words, it's a mirror. Go and see what is in you. Go and see who you are. See what you have to purge about you. Be honest about who you are. Be honest about how far you want to go in this thing. Be honest about why you want to go and what it is that you want to gain from this. So that's part of what the names are. Are there any questions about that? Because I didn't want to go into each and every one of them. But are there any questions about it?
Caleb also means male prostitute.
Okay. So it further says what I said. It doesn't link into showing you any insight as to why he was one of the ones chosen, other than his desire to change.
Mute the phone, please. When you male prostitute, tribe of Judah, right? Judah means praise.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So, does it mean that it is speaking of the concept of prostituting yourself? Prostituting praise?
Ooh, I don't know, Pastor. Go further with that. Let's see it.
He came from the womb, from the seed of one who turns away, right, or turns towards, right, which is his dad.
Yes.
Turns toward, but instead of turning toward praise, he prostitutes praise. Talking about when you know what praise is, or when you make an effort to praise, but instead of praising from the depth of your soul, you're praising for gain, whether it be monetary gain, whether it be praise. Whether it be popularity, whatever. It's like those who are gathered in a religious setting, and they are there to be seen, and they are there to be popularized. They are there not for the purpose of guiding praise towards the Creator, but guiding praise towards them. Even though they are praising the Lord and praising the name of Jesus, they are being praised themselves, because all the focus is on them, and it is not ever shifted to the one who is to be praised. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see it now. I see what you're saying.
So that speaks volumes. You know why? Because it says a male prostitute. So it is the misdirection of the seed of praise. Can you see that?
Yes.
And that is no coincidence. When you look at religious settings, who is the dominant one in leadership in those settings? The seed. And it is the seed that has created the separation in spirituality. What am I saying? It is the seed that created the idea or the concept of that male, female, or that masculinity and femininity being separate as opposed to being one entity. Interdependent on each other, non-existent without each other. Can you see that? And that's
yes.
what in these settings all the time. Excuse me. And I'm not just talking about, those who lead praise or praise dance. I'm not just talking about that. We're also talking about the one who stands behind that podium calling themselves preaching when they're actually doing nothing but calling words and entertaining people and directing praise to themselves, male prostitute. I'm done.
Okay. Now, I read a couple of these verses ahead of time. So when Moses, I'm sorry, verse 17, y'all, when Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, he said to them, go up there into the Negev, then go up into the hill country and see what the land is like. See the consciousness of, see what they value, see who they are, see if they are religious, see if they know God, see who they are, see what the land is like, see what their consciousness is like, and whether the people live living in a strong or weak, whether they are few or many. How is the land in which they live? Is it good or bad? Is it good or evil? Is it good or evil? And how are the cities? Or what are the cultures? What's important to them? What is it that these people value?
And look what happens. He enters this consciousness of awareness. He becomes aware of awareness. And he comes back with a great report, saying that we can accomplish anything because of who we are. So what am I saying? You don't have to remain in that state of prostitution. You don't have to remain in that state of selling praise or directing praise to you. When you become aware of the essence of the consciousness that you are supposed to be espousing, you come back with a report that is unexpected of you, and that's the portion that turns towards righteousness. The daddy, in other words, you go back to your foundation, and the foundation of your existence comes from the seed that turns its face towards righteousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As a result of that, what happens? Everything else, all of these other isms die. And only ones who came through this wilderness is the one who was considered, who was directing praise towards itself, and the deliverer, Joshua. So what happens is you get into that place, you get to the place of humility. Why? Because you recognize who you were, and you have a desire to not be that person. You have a desire to change. You have a desire to be what you were created to be. And what you have found is that the grapes are larger than any grape. They're so large until you have to bring them back on a stick between two men. And what are you saying? You are saying that the life that the Creator has given us is in abundance. And the land, yes, it is filled with giants, but those giants are like midgets to us. Why? Because the power of our being is not in what we see with our eyes. The power of our being is what we see with our eye. And what do we see with our eye? We see with our eye that I'm not a male prostitute. What I am is the countenance of our Creator, and what I am is a deliverance for humanity. So I get into this place of humility, and by being there, now I am able to say to those who are in this place that you have opportunity to change and to see who you are. Understand something. There was a time when I sought praise for me, but now I understand the one who do the praise is the one who created me. And the way I praise the one who created me is not necessarily by singing songs, but by being the song. And by being the song, I mean that everywhere I go, I exhibit the attitude of righteousness. And when I talk to people, I treat them with the utmost humility. I speak with them in a mild voice. I don't lord anything over them. I have not forgotten what I was, but I know what I was I'm not anymore, because I recognize that I am the song of praise itself. Therefore, I don't have to sing the song. I am the song. And when I'm talking to others, they hear the praise in my words. They feel the presence of Allah in my words. When I'm there Even if I don't speak, they know I'm there, because when I walk into a room, the countenance in that room, the energy changes because I have changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the spying is not for you to see anything but yourself.
That's it. That's it.
See
It's
who
not,
you are.
that's it. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's for you to see what you, the giants that you have to slay within you, those things that have the greatest hold on you, that you have to deal with. You have to, those things, you slay the giants so you can embrace the life, the spiritual life. The wine itself, or the grapes, or the precursor to the wine, and the wine is the blood of life, or the life's blood. And you look at those giants that you have to slay within you so that you can benefit from life's energy. And the giants, and what happens is we allow other people to increase the giants within us. What am I saying? We listen at what other people tell us. Well, you can't leave this church. We've been here all your life. That is giving food to the giant. That is causing the giant to grow even larger within us. And rather than slay the giant, what we start doing is feeding the giant, so the giant can have greater control over us, rather than us slaying that giant and becoming the giant ourselves, but not a giant that is going to impose itself on anyone, but a giant that is so large everyone can see the value in being what that giant represents. Does that make sense? Giant of being on the choir. You have so much to offer to this church. The church is not the same without you. You have a beautiful voice. Man, you can pray. You can preach. But why don't you teach Sunday school? You look at all of these things that I've just said, and I want you to think about them. Justify each one of them with the scriptures. There is nothing in the scripture that justifies that as being the spiritual essence of what we're supposed to represent in this earth. Not one thing. But that is everything that makes religion the business that it is, that makes it the source of bondage that it is, that makes it the manipulator that it is, that makes it the drug that it is. It is a spiritual addiction to something that's not real. There is absolutely zero reality in religion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Questions, y'all? Anyone? Questions, comments?
I have a comment. This is Evelyn. You had said, Pastor, well, let me make sure I'm on the same page as you. So is religion like a drug? Because once you get in it, you can get addicted, and it's in control of you?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Go ahead.
Good morning. One of the things I done gathered from this lecture is, I was just thinking about Scott's Barbecue. And Scott's Barbecue started out in Hemingway under Rosie, his daddy. His son took over the business and did quite well when he was in Hemingway. And he took that restaurant to downtown Charleston, where they serving barbecue with a chandelier. And I say all that to say this: some of the best barbecue I've ever had has come from establishments that look like DHEC would shut down immediately, screen door off its hinges, and that's kind of like how I look at religion and spirituality. One thing that religion needs to con everybody, it has to have a good presentation. And what I mean by a good presentation, you have to be in a tailor-made suit. You got to speak a certain way. Yet in spirituality, you got to take away from what you see in the physical and really find out what you're looking at or what you are letting them view you. So, if Joel Osteen was in Atlanta, I don't think Quavo Dollar would have the numbers that he would have. So I just look at religion as it has to be a good presentation, meaning what you drive, what you wear, whether you're in shape, but then people don't care if your mind and body is in shape, but as long as you look like you in shape. Yet I look at spirituality as it looks past everything that the physical eye can see and interpret. That's it. Thank you very much.
I like your analogy, George. Yeah, I can readily see that, see what you're saying, and if I may add something to that, the part of spirituality that doesn't look godly is when you're challenged from the inside out. Those things that you see internally, like this lesson we just had, searching for truth shows you those ugly things that are internal, and those things can be very uncomfortable and not always something you want to stay focused on. So it is easier to look at what is pretty and what is popular. Yeah, I can see that. Thank you.
Ron, I have one more comment.
Of course,
So,
go ahead.
as far as with religion, so Pastor's talking about masculine prostitute. So religion also pimps us as well, right? We become masculine and feminine prostitutes.
Pastor, talk about why that male prostitute was so important, though. You touched on it. Go into that again, if you would, please. If I understand Evelyn's question,
Yes.
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. When it talks about male prostitute, it's not talking about a man. It's talking about the energy that's seed. It can be a woman too, in terms of what we call a physical female. It's a seed. It's life. It's life energy, and that seed of life energy means that you are taking praise that should be directed toward our Creator and bringing it towards you. I'm not talking about the songs that you sing only. I'm not talking about the hoop or the that you're doing only. I'm talking about any presentation that you make or any gesture that you make that brings the light, that brings it to the eyes to you for the benefit of praise, as opposed to directing it towards our spirituality. I'm talking about everything that religion does brings the eyes to the material world itself. Be it the pastor, or be it the pastor saying that God gonna make you rich because you belong to Him. That house is yours, name and claim it. All these things are bringing praise to the material world as opposed to the spiritual world. And it's not, when it says male prostitute, it does not talk about a man that sells his body. It's talking about the seed that impregnates the feminine to bring into existence this type of praise. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
It does, but to me, it seems like we still get pimped. Well, people get pimped. Religion pimps people.
Exactly what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter what
Okay.
your man. But guess what? When you say religion pimps people, then who is religion? Every one of us. Every one of us have pimped folks. If you put it in that vernacular, because every one of us, at some point in our lives, have sought to bring people to our church, bring people to salvation. Does that make sense? Can you see that picture?
Ouch. That's all I can say. Ouch. Thank you.
We talked about a lot of stuff, and I'm wondering if it's a good place to start, Ron.
Yes, sir, I agree. I agree. Unless there are questions or comments, anyone? Every now and then, lessons seem kind of quiet. I hope that means you guys are contemplating this. I hope it made sense to you. If not, just let us know. We'll talk about it again tomorrow. Okay. But it does seem like a good place to pause. So, if there's nothing else to grab our attention, enjoy the rest of the day and look forward to tomorrow morning. Okay? Have a good day, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.